This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Auto Repair Marketing Podcast. I have a treat for you today. I'm super excited to have my friend Lisa Coyle with Promotive on the podcast today. But before we jump in, let me take a few moments to thank two really awesome sponsors who have been helping us bring this podcast to you. I want to thank our friends at RepairPal for providing you with this episode. RepairPal's certified network of shops are trusted by millions of customers each month. You can learn more by going to repairpal.com/shops. And then let me give a big thank you to our friends over at App Fueled. And we're going to tell you that they help make marketing easy. App Fueled makes it easy because of their CRM designed for auto repair shops with tools like segmentation, reminders, and even a call center. Don't wait. Get started today by visiting appfueled.com. Okay, so I think everybody in the world knows my guest, Lisa, and I didn't have the pleasure of connecting with her. I remember, Lisa, the very first time I knew anything about you, you came on stage, I want to say at Vision a couple of years ago, and it was when you were kind of introducing Promotive. And I remember thinking, I feel like I know everybody in the industry, but I don't know this lady. And just from the audience reaction to when you walked on stage and how they were cheering for you, I was like, how do I not know this lady? So I'm really grateful to have you today. Thanks for taking some time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I know it feels like we have known each other way longer than we actually have.
Mm-hmm.
But I did know who you were. You are more popular than me. You just have this air.
Crazy.
That, you walk around and people are they gravitate to you. So shame on us though, Kim, for taking this long.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Y'all, we probably spent 30 minutes talking before we decided to press record. So yeah,
easy.
Just fun stuff. Yep. Well, here's the thing. I had been thinking about having you on because we've taught classes about marketing and hiring and how your marketing attracts not only your customers, but future team members. And you, I'm not going to share what's in this blog, but she shared a blog with me that she wrote. And I was like kind of screaming in my own personal little quiet space where I was reading, because I'm like, yes, this is good stuff. And so I want to talk about the marketing aspect of hiring. And so, one thing that kind of drives me nuts is not that history repeats itself, but history is what has necessarily brought us here. In that I remember as a child, my daddy was a welder, very hardworking, blue collar, had his tin aluminum lunchbox and big thermos that my mom fixed for him every morning before he went to work. And he was a very hard worker. And I remember as a child hearing all the time, all over the place, go to college, go to college, go to college. Oh, you don't want to be a plumber. You don't want to be an electrical worker. You don't want to be a mechanic. They work too hard. They don't get paid. And I know when I met Brian, and he was a mechanic at the dealership for Mercedes-Benz, we just got married, and Brian was making six figures as a 22-year-old. And I remember thinking, exactly, nice. I'm like, how are people saying these guys don't make good money? And that's what parents were using to lure their kids to go to college. But the result of that is that here we are today, and blue collar workers, there's a huge shortage. And, people struggle with, well, the good ones are already working. And so we have to, the marketers, you with what you're doing at Promotive, we have to help these shops recruit, train, retain the best. And so that's why I have you here. And I have to say, I looked at y'all's website, but I took another look at it, and I just love some of the very smart marketing that y'all have on your site, things like automotive matchmakers and hassle-free hiring and VIP treatment. So it's really awesome to have you here. And I just want to ask you to explain first, because we were talking a little bit ago about some of these Facebook groups and all the conversations that are going on in there. There's still confusion about some of the common terms in your world, like headhunters and recruiting. And there's probably, there's that phrase, you don't know what you don't know. So break down for the listeners here the difference between some of those common words in your world. What is a headhunter? When does recruiting happen? What is recruiting? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And what I learned probably about 3 years ago or so is that the recruiters whose job, is to actually do the recruiting, they don't like being called headhunters. So that was a quick lesson for me, just like maybe some technicians don't want to be called, mechanics. I don't know. So yeah, when I had my first company, 360 Payments, we use headhunters or recruiters all the time, primarily to find roles that we didn't get lots of applicants for, or we didn't want to feel like we were poaching from competitors who we were, frenemies with, maybe, right? So when I say key roles, I mean VP of sales or chief operating officer, something like that. And we would use them. It was a longer process because they're really out there looking for exactly what fits your need. And usually it's not an urgent hire when you use the headhunters. And when I was on a bus, a party bus, so if you guys know me, I like party buses and boats. But I was talking with Joelle from Napa Auto Care at the time, and we were talking about needs of the industry. And what we realized was there's not anybody really doing that corporate, quote unquote, recruiting model in the automotive space. There's bits and pieces of it. And we researched for about 6 months, but there's not really that traditional headhunting model in the automotive space. And I can, after 2 years of doing this, probably justify why so many people have either started it and not made it, or said, oh, okay, I'm not going to do this part of it anymore. I'm only going to do this part. But a traditional headhunter / recruiter is probably just the nicer way of saying headhunting, in my opinion, right? It's not really too much difference. But,
yeah.
I always say they really do everything from start to finish. So, there's lots of companies out there who do great things. By the way, I think the little bits and pieces are great if you're going to still manage it. So example, a company like Better Teams, they have, it's called an applicant tracking system, and you're able to put your job ad up and it pushes out to multiple job boards. But you're still the one receiving the resumes and having to, call them or email them and communicate and do the whole process of bringing somebody on board through the interview process. A headhunting company does everything from helping you design the job description, posting it on job boards, does the sourcing, so calling people who aren't applying and saying, hey, we have this company we're working with. They're offering X, Y, and Z. Their culture is amazing. I always say when you use a headhunter, no matter what company you're with, doesn't have to be automotive, you do get that edification of somebody else saying how great you are instead of you saying how great you are, which helps too. And then does all the initial screening interviews and gets them ready for an interview, ideally in person in our world with a shop. And then even after that interview, we're designing the job offers and helping negotiate and be that, middleman in a good way, where sometimes people aren't comfortable asking, for more money. For example, it's still it's just uncomfortable, right? But they can tell us, I really like that shop, but I want an extra $2 an hour more. Right. Or I don't want to work after 4:00 on Fridays or whatever the case is. And they're just not comfortable to tell the shop. So we're able to be that middleman in that regard. And that's what I'd say. recruiters and headhunters do, is take everything off your plate except that initial, one interview in person or however many somebody wants to
Right.
do.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, what are the problems that shops have in hiring? And you essentially just, like they hire us to do their marketing because they're not marketers. And so they're also not HR people usually. And that whole, there's so much time involved. So you're saving time, you're doing all of that. Are there any specific problems that you can think of that, like, maybe generally across the industry that shops have when it comes to hiring?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a ton of them, and by no means am I perfect as an employer, today or in my past role. But I think it does start with your brand, and I'm sure we'll go into this because you're
Mm-hmm.
super passionate about marketing, right?
Mm-hmm. A little
So
bit.
what is your brand saying about you? What are the reviews out there saying about you? When you fire somebody or someone quits, like how did you leave it on what type of terms? So it really does start with branding. But outside of that, if I could choose one thing that I think shop owners need to be better about, whether they use a headhunter recruiter company like us or do it themselves, speed. Like speed, speed, speed,
Mm-hmm.
speed, speed. So if somebody is applying to your shop, whether their resume looks amazing or not, and as long as it sniffs automotive, I always say, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not a Chuck E. Cheese applicant
Yeah.
applying to a master tech role, get to them fast, because if they're applying to you, odds are they're applying
Mm-hmm.
to 5, 10, 15 other places. And that might mean calling people on a Friday night or a Saturday morning or a
Yeah.
Sunday morning. And it can't just be oh, well, I emailed them and, they're not going to get back to me. They don't want it bad enough. I mean,
Yeah.
they clearly applied, and you have to strike while the iron's hot. And I think not have that mindset in today's world. You just
Yeah.
have to go get them. I can tell you countless stories of speed being important.
I'm sure you can. And I mean, the thing is, well, I think I said this in the very beginning, is that the good ones are taken. They're already working. And so if they've seen some grass greener in your shop and they've applied with you, it's probably after hours or on the weekend. And I do know lots of, look, we're big about, and I think you are too, about life, balance, enjoying life and all. But when you're searching for someone, you definitely, like you said, have to strike while the iron's hot. I think that's really super great advice. And I mean, it's everything's an email. It's on your phone. I mean, if you're at a festival this weekend, you can send a quick response, even if it's not scheduling. You're just acknowledging, hey, I got your email, your submission, your application. So for shifting into like the marketing aspect of it, y'all are handling so much of that for shops. Are you helping them? Are they coming up with, are you the one coming up with it? It sounds like you do so much. Say the job, the title that you're posting, or the description and how it reads, so that, because that's marketing. It is, it's you're trying to attract someone. And we've already talked about mechanic versus technician. It's such a controversy. Brian is proud of mechanic. He does not mind being called a mechanic, even though he was a diagnostic technician. And I know some of the ladies that I'm in a Facebook message with some ladies that were saying, and I want to say Lola Schmidt probably gave another lady this advice, but it was literally just the job title, the way that they worded it. So talk about the marketing aspect of the words and the titles and what they're putting in descriptions.
Yeah, and I have random slides on this that I'm happy to share with you if you want any in the notes. But I always say to start, it's go on your phone right now as a shop owner and just type in the name of your shop or the automotive technician, Joe's Auto Repair, Walnut Creek, California, right? Whatever it is, and see how it comes up on a mobile device. That's first thing I want everybody to like think about, because most of the we're going to assume we're talking about technicians here because that's the
Sure.
hardest one everybody wants, right? most technicians are doing things from their phone. So they're not actually looking at the emails or the Indeed responses, because who the heck wants to go into all these other apps these days, right? But they respond to text message. And when they're also going on the applies, they're doing it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at a time, right? And it has to stand out on a phone. And I'd say, like, look at the how many letters fit in there, and be really selective on what not only the title is, but all the bullets in between that you want to stand out with. An example I just tell people is, I'd rather see no weekends than full-time work in there, right? Like, so use like no weekends as the bullet, says the full-time work. On the subject lines, it's kind of funny. Like, I tell people, the more granular you are, same thing for shop marketing, right? Like, you want to do your SEO on the jobs you want to be found for the jobs you want to be doing most. So you're not just typing in your SEO automotive repair. You want it to be like, transmission repair near me type of thing. And you want to go granular in the focus. The caveat there in our world on the staffing side is, if you go too granular, you might scare people away. So an example is, if you're a Euro shop, you can put in your subject line, European, mechanic, or European automotive technician, whatever. If they don't have Euro experience, would they want to apply? And if you're open to them not having Euro experience, and they maybe are a master tech and can do everything else, but they haven't done tons of Euro, do you want that person still? Right. So that's where I'd say the subject line, if you get too granular, could hurt. But the subject lines, we change them up. Honestly, like, sometimes we'll put automotive technician, sometimes we'll put mechanic, sometimes we'll put in the subject line $1,000 signing bonus. So you want to do something that's going to get their attention, but at the same time not scare them away. Right. So hopefully that helped. A long-winded answer there.
No, that was great. Absolutely. And it's so similar to, like you were saying, the marketing. I know when I've taught classes in years past about email marketing, I literally told them the same thing. Open up your phone right now and look at the subject lines in the email. Did half of your main message get cut off?
Yep.
So you're just getting swiped right by. So that's really great advice. And you're right. These techs, they are using their phone. There's no doubt about it. And that's probably the first place where they're gonna see, and you're either gonna get swiped over or not. Yeah. So you talked about some of the programs, but where are y'all finding? Am I cracking you up with my y'all? I don't ever realize that I'm saying it until I'm with someone like from California or way up north. And then I'm like, you've said y'all like 12 times.
I want to start saying it, but I think people will be like, what is wrong with her? But it's like a fun one. But I grew up in New Jersey and live in California, and we don't say y'all.
Yeah.
Sometimes I type it out though, and it makes me feel cool.
That's funny. Oh my gosh. Well, so like, where should shops be going to look for, or where's the best place for them to post these jobs?
Well, the first thing I always would recommend is treat your candidates the way you would treat a customer. Meaning, if somebody just calls you today or they email asking for a quote, are you just like answering their questions, or are you capturing their data and answering their questions? And I'd say every shop needs to have something that they're using to capture the data. And it could be something as simple as, Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel, where they have the name of the candidate, their phone, their cell phone number, their email address. Don't rely on those Indeed email addresses, by the way. And what their last job was or current job, like some basic stuff, and then notes. But the reason I say start there is, no matter where you're posting, build your database, build your bench. And just because someone today applies to an A tech role and they really maybe were B tech and you didn't have a home for them, doesn't mean that they're not going to be an A tech in 2, 3, 4 years, and you might
Yeah.
not know that. So it's worth staying in touch and checking in with them, and knowing like this person is driven. They're going to be an A tech one day. As far as the sources, we use them all. So Indeed, ZipRecruiter,
All the
um,
things.
yeah, all the job boards, and that's the advantage of using an applicant tracking system, which they're not cheap. And by the way, I don't think any of them are fantastic. So a whole market out there to build one of those. But the applicant tracking systems push out to all the job boards
Yeah.
for you.
Okay.
Now, not that's not pushing out to Facebook jobs or anything like that, and it's not or Instagram, but it goes out to all the job boards, and it doesn't hurt to have those inbound applicants. And anybody that's like, oh, Indeed applicants are terrible, like they're the people we want are already working. To your point, there's some gems out there. You're just not good at getting to them fast enough. Is what I'd say. And there's lots of reasons that I understand why shops don't get to them quick enough, but there's some really good ones. And Indeed and LinkedIn, that's another one. It's not cheap. It's like, I think our licenses are like $800 a month. You can only message 100 people a month. But those ones, if you're sourcing too and not just relying on the applicants,
Yeah.
you're able to set parameters that will flag when somebody updates their resume based on the criteria you put in there, and staying on top of them and inviting them to apply is definitely a win there too. And then again, we've been doing this for 2 years now, so we have 30,000 contacts or so in our database, and call it 10,000 of them are good contacts, or we've interviewed them in the past. That becomes your passive, those, oh, they're already working, texts. So one of my favorite lines is, your future self will thank your today self. So sometimes you feel like you're like not getting anywhere, but if you're built in anything, right, let alone recruiting, but if you're like building a brand or you're building your bench, you're doing something 2 years from now, you're going to have an Excel sheet of all these applicants that either, you didn't get a hold of, they took another job, they weren't the right fit for you at the time. And guess what? 2 years from now, they're all going to have jobs, most likely, and they're going to be the ones that aren't on Indeed. So it starts with doing the actual documentation today. And then other sources, though, you could do Facebook ads, you could do Instagram ads. So we do a bunch of those. The challenge there, of course, is with all the laws of, I don't even know if it's HIPAA stuff or what, but whatever it is, you can't say, hey, I want, to target 25 to 35-year-old men that, have, they follow SEMA. I don't know. You can't, with hiring, you can't get that granular there. So you're casting a wider net, but you absolutely can get geographically granular, and just can't like age discriminate or anything like that. And then there's lists out there. That's the other thing is, I tell shop owners, we use a company called Signal Hire, and you can download, I'm on there, by the way, too. I'm sure you are. But you can, download contacts from a database that scrapes the internet, and I'd say 50% of it is inaccurate, but I've called parents, I've called houses, wives, you name it, when we do that. But it's data, and if you have the patience to go through the data, again, there's some gems in that one too. And a lot of times, like, how'd you get my number? And I'm like, I don't know. You signed up at a San Francisco Giants game one day for a free hoodie, and you were cold because you weren't expecting San Francisco to be cold. So you sold your soul, and here we are. But those are good too. But I'd say LinkedIn sourcing licenses, Indeed sourcing licenses, signing up for an applicant tracking system, Facebook, Instagram. And then there's always the obvious of like getting your employees to refer people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, don't cheap out on that.
Yep.
Employee referrals, it's branding too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I am a big believer in getting family swag, not just for your employees.
Mm-hmm.
At 360, we would have onesies for every newborn baby that had
Mm-hmm.
360 on the butt. And you get the families wearing your swag out there,
Yeah.
and then they start sharing your company's posts of
Mm-hmm.
who's hiring and like, come work with my husband or come work with my wife.
Yep.
And in our office, we paid people, it was a 777 program that we did at 360. And it was whatever the gross amount they had to get paid, they would net $777. So, depending on people's tax withholdings and everything, call it, $1,200. We live
Mm-hmm.
in California. So a lot of taxes come out.
Yeah.
But we would post those referral 777, like refer your friends, all over the office.
Yeah.
And in the bathrooms,
Mm-hmm.
when people have time to like actually look at things too. So, I think pay your people to refer their people
Yeah.
is probably the best way that you're going to get candidates, period.
Yep.
But yeah, build that database, because today's applicants are tomorrow's, people who aren't looking for jobs and are in a different situation.
We pay our team members when they refer people as well. It's crazy to me how much of a difference it made when we put that out there. We'd put out there, hey, here's our job posting. Y'all let your friends, family know, whatever. But when we attached money to it, money talks. And I love what you said about building your bench. I do the same thing. I have a folder in my email that when resumes come in that aren't necessarily right in the moment, I save it and I stay in touch with those people. Years ago, there was kind of the opposite of me driving this person crazy. It was the applicant. She, over the course of a year, emailed me 27 times.
Oh my gosh.
By the time I finally was like, okay, let's really talk, because I finally had a position that opened up that was right for her. I went and counted. I was like, she has reached out to me 27 times. And so whether that's the applicant staying in touch or you staying in touch, there is someone opposite of that, who she's the one that started telling me several years ago, I really want to work for you. And she's local. And every single time a position would come open, I would send it to her. I'm like, here's a position. The problem was, at that time, we weren't offering the benefits that she needed. And now we are. And it still hasn't worked out yet, but I've got her, like you said, in my bench. She's over there. She's waiting. I'm waiting, and all that good stuff. I have a question for you. You brought up LinkedIn. Are y'all finding that there are lots of techs using LinkedIn?
Dealership ones are usually
okay.
on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're anti hiring people from the dealership, which some of our shops are, for some different reasons, then it wouldn't be a good fit there, most likely.
Yeah.
But yeah, the service advisors too. There are some good ones there.
Okay.
The GMs. So we work with a lot of shops that are looking for GMs and, higher level positions, managing 4, 5, 6, 7 locations. LinkedIn's a good option there. So
what are you finding with regard to a shop's typical average everyday regular marketing for consumers, how that impacts them hiring a tech or a service advisor or whatever it might be? Like their social media posts or whatever.
yeah, it doesn't come up as much as you would think, or I would think. But it's one of those just like, subconscious, intangible things that do make a difference. And the way I'm a big review site person. My friends make fun of me all the time because I can't go to a restaurant without looking at the pictures.
Same.
And then I was like TripAdvisor's top 2% at one point, and then they start all these people start messaging me and like asking for advice. I'm like, I don't have time to talk to these strangers.
Right.
So that said, How many reviews do you have? Are you a 5-star review with 4 reviews versus, a 4.5 star with 900 reviews?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that type of stuff does make a difference in a world where we're just all as consumers used to reviewing things.
Yeah.
It's like you're forced to a lot of times. I'm a big DoorDash person. I don't even want to know, how much I spend there, but after every DoorDash or every Uber,
Yeah.
I'm forced to leave that review
Mm-hmm.
with the stars and stuff. So I think it makes a difference there. We pictures on your job descriptions with links to your social pages. If you're proud of them, I would put those in your job descriptions and posts all day, every day. I'm big on, I call it the end of year video for both
Yeah.
360, Velo, and Promotive. I make these videos that are just kind of like highlight reels of the year of what we did. It makes us look like we just party all the time, but I promise we work. I can't tell you how many people, by putting that in our job posts, have said that video is why I came to work for you
Yeah.
guys. Like,
Absolutely.
so I'd say those things do make a difference, but they're not going to go searching for your Facebook page unless you guide them. You got to lead the horse to the
Mm-hmm.
water, and
Yep.
so you have to put it in your job post.
Yeah, the reason why I brought that up is because some of the classes that we've taught, like there's a class that I teach on building customer and team loyalty that it's my favorite class. I love it so much. And then in the past, we've taught a class about how your marketing, I forget what we called it, but marketing that attracts customers and technicians. And I've had texts in the class, and I always wondered why they were in there. Still don't know why they were in there, but maybe they're going
We're
to open
starting
their
our
own
own
business,
shop.
or
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and I've had them say, kind of my journey, the way that I came to work for this particular shop is I saw a job post. This was back when Facebook had its job boards. I saw, and maybe that's how they, it was easy to get to the, like you said, feed them. It was easy for them to get to the Facebook page. But I saw the job post and I was like, who is this shop? Go look at the reviews first. They always go to Google, look at the reviews. They want to see, because a lot of people are writing a review and they're talking about the jerk of the shop owner, right? The customer is saying, service advisor called the shop owner to talk to me, and the shop owner was rude. And, a future tech is reading that and going, okay, that's who I'm going to work for. And so they're reading the reviews. And then if they like what they see, then these techs have said, and then I go to the Facebook and I'm looking at, like what you were saying, they're looking for pictures of what's the shop look like? Is there bright lights in there? Is it organized? What's the tools and equipment look like? What's my Bay Area going to be like? And they're looking for the company culture. Are they having lunch on Friday? Do they barbecue? Do they go to training? They're looking for all of this. And so I love that you're kind of backing up what I've been telling people is your everyday marketing is pointing people in this direction or that direction. And to what you were saying, we're leaving. So we're recording this today. It's the end of April, and Brian and I leave tomorrow, driving over to Florida to check in to our beach house, go grocery shopping, get the bikes settled, make plans. And then Thursday, our team arrives, and every year we're taking tons of photos. One, we want to remember the moments. We have our own little channels in our Slack message where we'll go post a picture like on a stressful day, and I'm like, hey, remember the beach? Like just remember the beach. And I've had people message me saying, your team looks like where I need to be. Like it's those kinds of pictures, or us at Vision or at ASTA or whatever. And so showcasing your company culture. And I think that's just a big part of it. So um, for us, when we build someone's website in today's age, one of the default pages that is always part of a custom website build for us is a careers page. And very often we're having to coach these shops through, you need this. You need this on your careers page. You need this. It's not just now hiring blah 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 technician, service advisor, apply here, right? It's what are your, well, you fill in the blanks. Like, I know that y'all are handling all of this. So I don't know how much you feel the website is a part of it, but I'm thinking if I have a client that is also a Promotive client, on their careers page, I'm going to have a link to the job post that's going to take them to wherever you advise for us. But kind of lay out for these shops that are listening about the careers page of the website. What's needed? What do you feel is important? What's it look like?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head of making a website that's for consumers or customers and employees. And that was an eye opener for me a long time ago when I first started 360. I was probably like 26. Well, I know I was 26 when I started. It was probably like 27, 28, where we ended up doing our first website revamp. And somebody they told me, who's searching for you? Like, and who's like looking you guys up? And the reality was that not many people were like looking up 360 payments. Like they hadn't heard of us, right? They were more, the people that were coming to our website were already customers. Because, we're not going to, at 360, we weren't going to compete with the SEO of these huge conglomerate processors like a Square,
Sure.
that's VC backed and everything, so if you just Google credit card processing near me or something, right? Like 360 wouldn't necessarily come up. So they were like, you need to build your website, make it easy for your customers who are already with you and they know you and they just want to, schedule the appointment or submit a ticket in our world. Just make it simple for them in that, like, hey, existing customers here. And then everything else, they're like, just think about the future employees. What does your future employee want to see? And then your existing ones, what do they want to show their family, their kids, their grandparents, whoever? I'm a grandma's girl, so like making my grandma proud is still like one of my favorite things. We're only 40 years apart, so she's kind of cool. I like to mess with her. So, but I always like to make my grandma proud, and seeing like, you yourself and what you're doing on a company website makes the grandmas of the world proud. So it's not just the future employees, it's the existing ones, which the future ones then see like, oh, wow, they're treating their existing people this way. And I'll give you an example that I think shop owners don't do enough of. Put your team on your website, right? Showcase them. And the reason I think that shop owners don't showcase them is we have this natural human nature scarcity mindset that, oh, well, if I put them out there, someone's going to go poach them. Somebody knows who your tech is anyway, and if they're going to get poached, they're going to get poached, right? Like, but make them, like, elevate them and, treat them like you would, a VP of sales if they're your master tech. You don't have to put, 30 people on your website if you have 30 employees, but put your key ones there and give their little bio and let their family pictures be on there, and let the future employees see who they're going to be working with. But those videos are big too.
I know shops that are afraid to send their techs to training because of poaching. And Brian and I have always said, so if someone quits working with us, I take that as I got fired. And so I'm typically having an exit interview to say, what could I have done better? Why couldn't I keep you here? And it's, you can either not train them and keep them or train them and keep them, right? I mean, like, it's your job to, that is the shop owner or like the business owner's job to retain. So talk to us about, now they've got, you've done all your work, they're hired. What are y'all coaching people, your clients, on training and retention? What's that look like?
So it's like a fine line because we're not trying to be coaching companies. We love all of our coaching company partners. But after someone signs the offer letter, it really, you have to, like any business, by the way, this is not just shops, any business, you have to keep that candidate engaged until they start. So most of our average, I did this year's at least, from time of signing an offer letter to time of starting in the shop, it's 10 days. And that encompasses weekends. So you have to remember, like, some shops, some people aren't looking for jobs. And if they say yes, right, it's going to be probably a 2, 3, 4 week notice. Some people who have no job, they get an interview today, they start tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. So across the board is about 10 days. What's happening in those 10 days? They might still have other interviews out there happening. And you and the other shop are same pay, but the other shop is 10 minutes closer. Right. Like, so you have to keep them engaged. If you have a team happy hour, anything you're doing with your team, like, just treat these people the day they sign as if they're employees already.
I love that.
Is what I'd say there. Another thing, one of my other favorite lines is, don't trip over dollars to pick up pennies. Make it simple for them to come on board. Pay for their tool move, organize their tool move. It's like, I mean, my friend, maybe yours too, Kathleen Callahan, right? Like, she came to one of our company kickoffs, and she's like, it's like $100-$200 like for a tow truck to come get it or whatever. It's like let those little things go and just make it happen for them during that. We stay in touch with the candidate. If they're starting on a Monday, our team's supposed to be, I don't know if they're perfect, I don't inspect everything, sending a text on Sunday being like, are you ready for your first day? We're excited for you. And then after their first day, we're seeing how it went. After the first week, we're seeing how it went. And then it tapers off where we're not checking in with them as much. But if I was a shop owner, and even as, I don't have many quote unquote direct reports these days, but I would have pre-scheduled check-ins that, like, they know they're going to have their meeting with you after their first week, after their second week. I would do weekly for the first month, and then switch it to bi-weekly second month, and then 90-day review. And they're like pre-scheduled, because the worst is like, hey, Kim, you got a minute to talk? They're like, their stomach drops. They're like, what did I do wrong? Like, just have it like scheduled and ready to go. And also, if things aren't going right, they know they have an opportunity to share that with you. And as a shop owner, I would be asking for that feedback and be specific, because a lot of times people, again, human nature, they don't want to, like, snitches get stitches type of thing, right? Like, that's my Jersey side. But like, they don't want to rat people out. But if you're like, hey, I noticed that, Bob was a little standoffish. Is that something that you noticed too? Is there anything like that happen? Like, just like call things out if you've seen them or heard them, and don't make them feel like they're ratting you out, or ratting somebody else out, I should say. And then make their first day special, right? Like, this is where the marketing comes into play. Buy the donuts, right? Have some team like icebreaker type of thing, and make it just memorable for them, and do an employee spotlight on social media, right? Like, we had this person start, and they have 2 kids, and they're born and raised in this area, went to so-and-so high school, was a star quarterback, was in the military, whatever. Like, highlight them and make them feel special, that this is their forever home, like their family, their career, not just a job, is what I would also say.
I love that you are validating me in this moment, because I do a lot of that stuff. So it's making me feel really happy. But also, I know that we call it eat your own dog food around here. Like, we do what we practice, we preach to people, but you are doing that, because I know someone that is new to your team who is close to me and actually reached out and was like, they're announcing me on social media next week, and was super excited about that. So I think, making people feel like you're in the right place here, is really a big deal. So I love that. We assign a buddy, and intentionally someone not in the same department. Usually, sometimes it is, but usually it's someone outside who, because we're all virtual, right? And so they're checking in through Slack or do a quick little Zoom face-to-face virtual where they're like, hey, how's your first day? Do you have any questions? Do you need anything? And it's those little things that often make a huge difference. So I love that. Lisa, anything that you think we haven't talked about that you want shop owners to know when it comes to the hiring and marketing and all of
I
that?
think one of the points that when we were talking about the Google reviews, this is going back into what's being said about the service advisor that was a jerk, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case was. um, Look, make sure you're replying to the negative reviews, and be very aware of how you're replying to the negative reviews. And I think that's something that I would say it's kind of funny if you actually go look at them for fun. Think of some jerk customers that you may have had in the past, Kim, and then go look at their Google reviews and how they reply. Like, are they super defensive? Are they making typos because they're keyboard warriors after they had,
Mm-hmm.
a couple of drinks of whiskey or something?
Right.
It's scary, seeing some of the replies. So I'd say make sure you're checking that out. And then I really do believe in ending on positive terms with everybody. And it starts with the applicants, and of course your employees. And even if someone from Chuck E. Cheese does apply, even if somebody applies to an ATech role and they're clearly a GST or something, give them the common courtesy of a reply.
Mm-hmm.
And don't just let that fall by the wayside. And I get it in business, the urgent outweighs the priorities. But your brand is starting from the applicant.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you how many, like, we talk to candidates that, we all joke around, techs have egos, right? Like, we talk to them and they're like, I won't ever work for that person because I applied 2-3 years ago and they never got back to me, and I don't ever want to feel like someone's plan B, C, D, whatever.
Yeah.
And again, remember, these candidates grow in their career. So keep that in mind, that, an applicant today could be a rising star tomorrow. That said, same thing, like, the reputation of you as an owner is out there, your shop is out there. And I would say, like, just be careful of how you let people go, because they talk, and whether they're good at their job or not, they have relationships. And one of our struggles at Promotive, and we get over the struggle, right? And because we're salespeople, we figure it out, is when candidates won't work for the shop. So they apply to Promotive, they're not applying to Joe's Auto Repair, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, I won't ever work for that guy. He's a jerk. I've heard terrible things about him. Or that shop is brutal. It's gross, whatever. And, like, it's out there. And then we have to sell, how the shop has changed, its new ownership, like, don't believe everything you hear. We wouldn't work with the shop if we didn't believe in them, right? So we, by the way, get applicants that shops wouldn't necessarily get because of that potential reputation, and vice versa. Shops might get more candidates because people don't know who Promotive is, but your brand is so critical. And just assume everyone's gonna tell 5-10 people about their negative experience versus one with a positive experience.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
And how you talk about your employees to each other too. That's, like, people see that stuff. If you're like, oh yeah, this guy, he sucks, and you're validating what everybody else might be thinking about that guy, I promise you, and I've gotten this feedback personally probably 10 years ago too, that people are like, if she's talking or you're talking about Billy that way, what is she saying about me behind my back?
Some of these Facebook groups, like I'm reading sometimes, and I think I have to physically pick my jaw off the floor for some of the things that are being said. Cause I'm like, first I think, okay, obviously you must know that your employee is not in this group, but they could be at any point in any time. And how many people in that group know that that tech or whatever employee works for you is not screenshotting. It's like, I'm just, I don't know. It just blows my mind.
I just did a podcast yesterday on it, like that one of my pet peeves is these Facebook groups.
Mhm.
I agree that it's very easy, Kim, to create a fake profile on Facebook,
Right?
and whether, like, or have a different name and that's not
Mhm.
really, your name, like whatever the case is, like just assume that it's whatever you're saying, whatever you're posting is going to get screenshot in your example
Absolutely.
there and post everywhere about you as an owner one day.
Yeah.
And there's not Facebook groups to bash the owners. I don't see much of that happening compared to the employees getting
Yeah.
bashed.
Yeah.
And
Right.
but yeah, it's if you don't want it, in the newspaper, then don't put it in writing,
That's
right? And
right.
don't say it.
Yeah.
So assume everything's being recorded, is the other, mindset when you're talking to your employees too. So, but yeah, I would just say like keep your reputation as strong as possible, end on good terms, and pay attention to how you're applying to the reviews, and make your company look like one that you would want your kid to work for.
Absolutely. That's the best advice right there. So, Lisa, tell everybody where can they find you, in any particular links for them to find Promotive, to engage with you if they're looking for. I just want to take hiring off of my list. I do not want to deal with it. I want the professionals to do it. Where do they go? How do they get in touch?
Yeah, so our website's just gopromotive.com. So GOPROMOTIVE.com. And we have, three salespeople, myself, Joelle, and Ethan, that you would get in touch with. And, bottom line is you'll learn something. I tell everybody we want people to be successful at hiring. If it's not a fit, we're going to be the first ones to say that we won't work with every shop, for the record. We have to, again, believe in it and that they're investing in their people and their training, and not paying an A-Tech $20 an hour. We want to make sure that we're partnering with the right shops, but you'll get something from meeting with us, is what I would just say. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, thank you for hanging out with me today. And thanks everybody for listening to the Auto Repair Marketing Podcast on the Aftermarket Radio Network. There are some other great shows on the network. You can find them all at aftermarketradionetwork.com or on your favorite podcast listening apps like Spotify, Apple, Google, many others. Tune in for another episode next week. And until then, go fill those bays.